Hey everyone, this is Jen from Kiaba Photography, and today I want to give you a quick sneak peek behind the scenes of how I created my most recent image called Exploring the Abyss. Now, most of my images are pretty complex, and most of them start out as sketches where I'll actually write directions for myself as to how I'm going to set up a shoot and how I'm going to get all of my angles and edit everything together. But this image is actually very simple and didn't start out as a sketch, which is why I thought it would be kind of cool to show you how it works. So I'm going to pop into Lightroom really quickly to kind of give you a behind the scenes look at what the shoot looked like, and then I'm going to come back into Photoshop and I will kind of deconstruct the image for you. So let's get started. Okay, so now we're over in Lightroom, and as you can see, this is pretty much my whole shoot. I usually only spend 5 to 10 minutes on a shoot because I've generally mapped out everything that I'm going to need for each piece. So what I've got here are test shoots down, or test shots down at the bottom, and then I knew that I needed several different pieces for my pose. So these 3 shots right here, which I will zoom in for, are what I ended up using. Scroll back down. So this piece actually got used for the feet. This piece, nope, not that one. This one got used for the overall pose. And then there's another one in here that got used for the back hand, because as you can see, I'm kind of missing a hand right here, and I wanted to sort of give a little bit more depth to the figure. So a lot of these shots are really just trying to get the pose and the wind both to cooperate at the same time. So went through several different ones. The first time back over here, you can see I've actually got my boots on, and I realized that the skirt was not long enough to cover those, and I was going to have to brave the cold and take the shoes off. So that's why we've got this shot right here. Then once I had gotten my my boots and my coat back on, I decided to get the rest of the images that I was going to need for this shot. So as you can see, if we actually go back here, my idea was to have this figure standing on this precipice, and this is not the most impressive precipice in the world. In fact, it kind of just looks like I'm standing on a little piece of rock jutting out. And the overall idea was to have something a little more epic. So what I did is I walked along the ridge looking for pieces of rock that might actually work. Another thing that I did was take a plate of the background. So I've got, I think this was what ended up being like my plate for the background, and I'll talk to you a little bit about that later. But I went around looking for pieces of rock that I thought I could get enough detail in and stand the figure on. And a lot of these I was taking for texture, to get an idea of the different shapes, but one of the things that I was really aiming for was to get this sense of the underside of a rock, because if we go back to where the figure is over here, you can see I've got this underside right here, which means that my tripod is actually down the hill quite a bit and I'm shooting up. And so I wanted to mimic that angle. And that's a really important thing to think about when you're compositing, is you want to try to get the same sort of angle on all the different pieces that you're shooting. All right, so I ended up kind of kneeling down under a lot of rocks to photograph them, and I came across this rock right here, which I thought was a pretty good option. And so this is what I actually ended up using in that final piece. So what I do is I end up flagging things as pics by just hitting P in Photoshop, or in Lightroom, sorry, and then exporting them into a separate folder so I don't have to go through all of these different files, and I'll have like 5 images that I end up working on in Photoshop. So I'm going to take you back into Photoshop now, and we're going to talk about the different pieces that went into that final image. Okay, so here we are back in Photoshop, and I'm just going to zoom out really quickly so we can see that perspective that I was talking about. So right over here is what I mean in terms of photographing from down below, so as viewers, our perspective is looking up at this figure. So let me take you through a little bit of what the different pieces were for this. We had what I call a plate that I shoot, and then we have, this is the rock that I used as this piece right here. And here is the main part of the figure. So what I tend to do is just lasso the piece that I want, copy it, and then paste it. And there we go. All right, so let's talk a little bit first about why I don't just use this image right here as my plate. And the reason is, if we go over here, let's just kind of think about how far up I've moved the figure on the background. So the background here pretty much remains the same, right? You can see what's changed. And then when we put the figure back in, like this is right around where I was standing, but I realized that what I wanted was to have the figure kind of not central to the image, but up a little bit. And because I was going to bring a different rock element in that was going to take up part of the foreground, I wanted to have this piece independent. So what I do is just go over here and add what's called a mask, a layer mask, and then you can go in with a paintbrush, a black brush at full opacity, and you can vary the edge and then just start painting out whatever you don't need. All right. And without getting into like super detail about how you do it, you basically get as close as you can and get rid of all of that extraneous detail. And what I did in this image is got rid of those feet too, because in this final, we've got different feet. So let me take you through this. This is before I've run any actions on the image to change the light and to change the color. This is basically all of the different pieces that I've used. And I'm just going to turn off all of these other layers too, because I've got a few actions on here as well, actually. And I've got some effects. And I really just want to show you the pieces that make up this image. All right, so what I have right here is what's called a group in Photoshop, and it's literally just a folder that holds various pieces, and I've named it body because it refers to the figure right there. And as you can see, I've actually named each piece so it's easier for me to understand what is going on with each piece of this body. So I'm just going to go through here for you. I added a skirt that I had because I thought that it looked a lot better than the blousey look over here. And you can actually see my jeans underneath the skirt. And I thought, no, that doesn't really look great. The main piece of the body is right here, which correlates, whoops, right back to this image over here. And we've got a little addition of hair and then a back hand that I had photographed with the remote in another image. And there's those feet that I talked about. So again, the reason that I created this separate from the background is because I wanted to be able to move this figure wherever I felt it was necessary to move her. So if I felt like this was the right place to have her versus maybe like right there at that very edge, I would have that ability to do so. And then this is actually not named properly, but that is that other rock that I talked to you about, which came from over here. And so again, I thought that this looked a lot better than what originally would have come out of camera looking like that. So as you can see, it's a pretty big difference, but from the perspective of compositing pieces, this is really only however many pieces make up the body. We've got 6 pieces here, plus the background layer itself, and then this piece of rock. So that's actually a pretty simple composite, and then of course like I've complicated it by adding various effects. But overall, you could accomplish this same thing by going out in your own backyard and shooting. Alrighty, so that pretty much does it for this little sneak peek behind the scenes. Obviously, this wasn't an in-depth tutorial, but if there's anything specific that you want to know about how this image was created that I didn't cover in this peek behind the scenes, please let me know in the comments below. Or if you're really dying for that full-on tutorial where I talk from start to finish of an image, let me know, and I will definitely plan to set something up like that for my next shoot. Anything else that I didn't cover and you want to know about, let me know. I would love to hear from you. Thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to talking soon. Bye.